Good morning, deep diver, and welcome back for a fresh start to your week. We're unpacking something that's quietly reshaping our world, maybe even while you're still hitting snooze. Today, we're diving into algocracy. Now, that's a word you might not have heard before, but it's a reality that's increasingly impacting your everyday life.
Indeed, yeah, this deep dive is all about how public life, political life too, is increasingly structured, mediated, and even constrained by these automated, algorithm-based systems. It's not really about, robots taking over in some sci-fi way. It's more about how code is subtly replacing or fundamentally altering democratic processes.
Okay, let's unpack that term then, algocracy. You said it's about systems structuring public life, but our sources, they draw this really crucial distinction. They say it's more than just algorithmic governance, the general use of computers for social ordering. Can you really drill down into that difference for us? Like, what's the key line where governance tips over into what the sources are calling algocracy?
That's a great question, and it's really key to understanding this. So algorithmic governance is just using code to help run things.
Hmm.
Pretty straightforward. Algocracy, though, as our sources define it, that's when this governance starts to supplant core democratic functions.
Supplant, okay.
Yeah. It's like a quiet erosion of human agency, of control,
Uh-huh.
where the very act of governing shifts away from, say, human discretion and political debate towards computational optimization.
Huh. And the central paradox here is just fascinating. These systems, they're often rolled out promising efficiency, objectivity, fairness even. Yet our report argues they can actually entrench existing power structures, launder societal biases into these seemingly neutral outputs, and create incredibly opaque control.
Exactly. It threatens to turn citizens into mere data points and, politics into just a technical exercise.
So it's moving from algorithms as tools for governing
Right.
to algorithms becoming the governors, maybe without the usual checks and balances we expect.
Precisely. Often without human oversight or those traditional checks and balances we associate with, well, democracy.
Okay, so our mission today is to pull back the curtain on this. It's a complex topic. We'll look at some real-world examples, explore the big promises, especially that hope of solving bias in decision-making, that's a big one, and then we'll dig into the very real perils they present to our democratic way of life. And finally, we'll explore what's actually being done to keep these powerful tools aligned with human values. Try to avoid some of those scary long-term impacts if we lose sight of how decisions get made.
Right. This isn't just abstract theory.
No, definitely not. It's about understanding how decisions are increasingly being made for us and, well, what happens when we lose sight of that whole process. Let's jump straight into some tangible examples then, because this isn't theoretical at all. These are real-world applications, algorithms shaping access to basic services, economic opportunity happening right now.
Yeah, and these aren't just isolated glitches, technical failures. They really illustrate a systemic shift towards automated social sorting and control,
Mm.
and often with deeply inequitable consequences.
Okay, first up, the digital poorhouse. That sounds a bit Dickensian, doesn't it? Like something out of a novel, but, with algorithms.
It does sound that way, and it's pretty apt, actually.
Yeah.
Political scientist Virginia Eubanks coined the term. She argues that modern data mining, automated eligibility systems for social services, they're basically a high-tech version of 19th century poorhouses, designed effectively to profile, police, and, yeah, punish the poor, all under this banner of efficiency.
Wow, and a prime example played out right here in the U.S. Indiana's huge $1 billion contract with IBM back in 2006 to automate welfare eligibility.
Exactly. The stated goal.
Yeah.
Efficiency, fraud reduction. Sounds good, right?
Yeah, on paper.
But the devastating result, over 1 million denials for food stamps, Medicaid, cash benefits, just in 3 years. Yeah, a 54% increase in denials. The system was confusing, people lost documents. It even had these perverse policies incentivizing call center workers to just close cases early.
That's terrible.
The state eventually sued IBM over it.
1 million denials. And the sources, they really highlight how the system was hard to understand, massively scalable, persistent, and created an eternal record. That last one, that's chilling. This idea of digital data about poverty just following you for life. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many lives were just completely altered by a system built for efficiency? How much trust was lost?
It's heavy thought.
Okay, next up, predictive justice and how bias gets coded in. This is where that whole idea of algorithms being objective really starts to crumble.
Really does. Predictive policing, for example.
Okay.
It uses historical crime data to try and forecast where crime might happen next. But the fundamental flaw is this. Historical police data. It often reflects past policing priorities, past biases, so the algorithms end up disproportionately targeting already over-policed minority communities.
Right. And that creates this dangerous feedback loop, doesn't it? Algorithm sends police somewhere,
Uh-huh.
more arrests happen there, which generates more data saying, see, high crime,
Yeah.
which then justifies even more policing there. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. And it's why major cities, LA, Chicago, they've actually abandoned these programs. They weren't effective.
And then there's the COMPASS tool, the recidivism risk assessment.
Yeah, used in sentencing.
Hmm.
A ProPublica investigation in Florida found this algorithm was twice as likely to falsely flag black defendants as high risk. That's a 45% false positive rate.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it was almost twice as likely to incorrectly label white defendants who did reoffend as low risk, a 48% false negative rate for them.
So much for objectivity. It really sounds like the algorithm just learned the existing biases from the data it was fed. It didn't eliminate them at all.
Pretty much.
But how does that happen? Is it just the data,
Yeah.
or are there like design choices, maybe societal structures that kind of bake in these prejudices even before the data gets collected?
Well, it's often a combination. The data itself, it's like a mirror of our world, biases included. If a historical data set shows disparities, an algorithm, if you don't check it, will just learn and repeat those disparities. The design choices come in deciding whether you build in ways to spot that, to mitigate it, or if you just let it run.
And it's not just the government doing this. Algorithms are becoming algorithmic gatekeepers in the economy too, right? Shaping who gets jobs, loans, opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. A classic example is Amazon. They developed an AI recruiting tool, trained it on a decade of resumes submitted to them. But because the tech industry back then was so male-dominated, the AI essentially learned that male candidates were preferable.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It penalized resumes with terms like women's chess club captain. It even downgraded graduates from all women's colleges. Amazon eventually had to scrap it because they just couldn't guarantee it wouldn't find other, maybe more subtle ways to discriminate.
So the AI didn't get rid of the human bias, it just laundered it through software. That's a really powerful phrase, disturbing too. But if the goal was to remove bias, does this suggest maybe a fundamental flaw in relying on these systems, or is it just like an unavoidable side effect of training on imperfect historical data?
Our sources suggest it's, well, maybe a bit of both. It definitely points to a fundamental challenge. Cleaning historical bias out of data. It's incredibly hard, and simply automating a process doesn't automatically make it fair if the inputs, the data, are already skewed.
And then in finance, these new e-scores, using your digital footprint shopping habits, social media, even your phone type, iPhone versus Android.
Or your email provider.
Yes, your email provider. Yahoo users apparently deemed higher risk in some models.
Seriously, that's wild.
I know, right? Sounds like a joke. But these data points, they often act as proxies for things like race, class, socioeconomic status. It creates this kind of high-tech redlining.
Like the old practice, but digitized and invisible. Exactly. An algorithm might penalize night shift workers, for instance, if it learns that people who shop late at night are somehow higher risk. And these systems, largely unregulated, very opaque.
What's really striking here is how these examples cut across everything. Public services, justice, the economy. They all show algorithms sorting people based on historical bias data. It's like this modern form of social sorting, but it's cloaked in the authority of data science, leading to familiar, unfair results. So, okay, given all these pitfalls, why are we embracing these systems so readily? There must be a powerful upside, right? What's the big attraction?
Oh, absolutely. The drive towards algocracy, it's fueled by really compelling promises. Efficiency, objectivity, responsiveness. These systems are designed to solve real problems, and that appeal is genuinely strong.
Like efficiency and cost saving, that's always going to be attractive to governments managing huge public services, right?
That's a huge one. AI promises to make services smarter, faster, more accurate, and consistent. Automation can lead to significant cost cuts in admin tasks, freeing up human workers for maybe more complex, nuanced cases.
And we've seen examples, haven't we? AI detecting tax fraud in Canada, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
AI chatbots handling citizen questions 247 in Singapore. It really is about doing more with less.
And that leads right into the next big promise, this ideal of objective, unbiased decision-making. Because let's face it, we all know human judgment can be full of biases, conscious or not.
Which is exactly why this is such an exciting prospect for many. The core argument is, look, a well-designed system applying consistent rules could mitigate or even eliminate an individual official's biases. In theory, an algorithm could assess your loan application without any influence from your race or gender.
Exactly. And our sources even suggest that some citizens, particularly from minority groups, might actually prefer automated decisions if they perceive the human alternatives to be racially biased. That allure of algorithmic objectivity, it's rooted in a really deep desire for genuine fairness.
And beyond just making administration more efficient, algorithms promise to revolutionize how we even design policy.
Right. By analyzing massive data sets, AI can spot patterns invisible to humans. This could enable proactive, evidence-based governance.
Things like predicting disease outbreaks, optimizing traffic flow, monitoring environmental quality.
Exactly, with unprecedented precision. Governments could even simulate policy impacts before rolling them out, seeing potential ripple effects.
So it shifts governance from being reactive to proactive, makes public policy smarter, more adaptive. The appeal of all this efficiency, objectivity, intelligence, it reflects this deep faith in what Max Weber called instrumental rationality.
Yeah, algocracy is almost seen as the ultimate fulfillment of a perfectly managed society, minimizing messy human discretion.
The promise sounds incredible on paper, like it could solve all our messy human problems.
It does. But, as Weber also foresaw with his iron cage idea, such a hyper-rationalized system might leave very little room for the human values that are actually essential for a free society.
Hmm.
It's the ultimate, be careful what you wish for.
Okay, now let's confront that darker side. Because the very features making these systems powerful, their speed, scale, complexity, they also introduce profound risks to democracy.
Yeah, and these aren't just technical glitches we're talking about. They're fundamental challenges to accountability, equity, even informed public discourse.
And this is where the black box problem comes in again. That idea that complex AI decisions are so opaque, even the creators can't fully explain how they were made.
Right. And legal scholar Frank Pasquale argues this is creating a society that's monitored and judged by secret algorithms, often without us having any understanding or recourse.
Which directly undermines a cornerstone of democracy: due process, your right to an explanation for decisions affecting your life. If an algorithm denies you that loan or that benefit and the institution literally can't explain why, well, accountability just evaporates, doesn't it?
It does. This intelligibility deficit, as the sources call it, it threatens political legitimacy itself. Democratic authority relies on power being rational, justifiable. When decisions come from opaque systems demanding blind trust, that erodes public trust. It fosters a sense of powerlessness, feeds into that feeling that the whole system is rigged.
It's not just not knowing how, it's having no way to challenge it, no basis for an appeal.
Exactly.
And let's circle back to the automation of inequity. This is where that promise of objectivity just completely flips into a nightmare.
Right. Far from being neutral, these systems frequently learn, reproduce, and even amplify existing societal biases. Why? Because they're trained on historical data that already reflects systemic discrimination.
We saw the predictive policing example. Our sources even called these systems weapons of math destruction, WMDs, because they're opaque, used at scale, and create these damaging feedback loops that punish the poor, the marginalized.
And beyond those direct decisions, algocracy also subtly shapes the information we consume every day. Think about social media platforms. They use algorithms to curate your newsfeed, right? Their goal is maximizing engagement, keep you scrolling.
But the side effect is filter bubbles, echo chambers, these personalized information universes that kind of insulate us from different viewpoints, which contributes massively to polarization.
And while, sure, user choice plays a role, you choose who to follow, the algorithms themselves can have a polarizing effect. One study found Facebook's algorithm tended to push conservative users towards even more conservative news. Meta's own internal research reportedly found its tools were responsible for something like 64% of extremist group joins.
64%, wow.
Yeah, and Zeynep Tufekci argues YouTube's recommendation algorithm can lead users down these rabbit holes towards more and more extreme content. The potential for algorithms to amplify divisive, sensational, maybe even false information at scale, it's a clear threat to having a shared reality, which you need for democratic debate.
And there's emerging research backing this up. A study across 72 countries found a significant negative correlation between AI development and democracy scores. That Algocratic dilemma really hits home, doesn't it? It suggests we're not just facing a simple trade-off. It feels like a fundamental tension.
Hmm.
The very efficiency we're chasing with AI might be inadvertently stripping away the messy but vital processes that make democracy work. It's like the more perfect we try to make the system computationally, the more fragile our human connection to it becomes.
Precisely. It raises that uncomfortable question. Is technological optimization, when pushed to the extreme, inherently at odds with democratic values?
So, if we're caught in this dilemma, what are we actually doing about it? Are there frameworks, regulations, maybe grassroots movements pushing back against these undemocratic tendencies?
Yes, thankfully. There's a global effort underway. It involves legal regulations, voluntary standards, technical fixes, grassroots innovations. I think of them as modes of resistance and also accommodation, trying to steer this tech towards public good.
Our sources highlight what they call a tale of two frameworks. The EU AI Act versus the US NIST AI Risk Management Framework. Sounds like a matchup.
Huh? Yeah, a bit. The EU AI Act is really the world's first comprehensive, legally binding AI regulation. It's based on risk. It outright prohibits unacceptable risk systems, things like social scoring by governments,
Mhm.
and it puts really stringent obligations on high-risk systems, like those in employment or law enforcement, before they can even hit the market. The core focus, fundamental human rights.
Okay, legally binding, rights focused.
Yeah.
What about the US approach?
The NIST AI Risk Management Framework, it's quite different. It's voluntary guidance, a set of best practices to help organizations manage risk. It's flexible, designed to encourage innovation through self-regulation. But the key difference is it lacks legal teeth.
So, EU strict, binding, rights first, US voluntary, flexible, innovation first. Big philosophical differences there in how you approach governing powerful tech.
Huge differences, absolutely. And then when it comes to actually opening up that algorithmic black box, we are seeing some interesting tools emerge.
Like what can actually help us peek inside?
Well, algorithmic impact assessments, or AIAs, they're a key procedural tool, kind of like environmental impact assessments. The idea is to proactively identify and mitigate harms before a system is deployed. They emphasize things like independent audits, public consultation, looking at the real-world context.
But I can imagine those being tricky. The risk of ethics washing, right? Where it looks good on paper but doesn't change much.
That's a definite risk.
Okay.
Then on the technical side, you have explainable AI, or XAI.
Yeah.
This field aims to make complex models more interpretable. Techniques like LIME and ESHAP, they can try to show you, for instance, which specific data points, like your income, maybe your zip code, were most influential in an algorithm's decision.
Okay, so it tells you how it decided. But an explanation of how doesn't automatically make the decision fair or legitimate, does it? It's not the same thing as justice.
You're hitting on a crucial point there. Explanation is absolutely not the same as justification. And then you have things like fairness-aware machine learning, FAMML techniques that try to reduce statistical biases. But they often involve these complex trade-offs between different kinds of fairness or between fairness and accuracy. It gets very complicated very fast.
So ultimately, it really sounds like regulations and tech fixes alone aren't enough. You need actual human involvement, right? We can't just code our way out of this entirely.
You're absolutely right. There's a growing push now for what's called participatory AI design, actively including diverse stakeholders, especially the communities most affected by these systems, right, in the design and development process. It moves beyond just getting feedback after the fact to giving communities real agency in shaping the tools that will impact their lives.
Drawing on lived expertise, that sounds like a really powerful way to build AI that's more legitimate, more aligned with community values. It feels like bringing the human element back in.
Exactly. And complementing that is citizen audits, external oversight. The Netherlands Court of Audit, for example, reviewed government algorithms and found significant problems. Cities like Amsterdam, Helsinki, they've created public AI registries to just disclose where algorithms are being used. These are really critical democratic counterpressures, empowering citizens with knowledge.
Okay, so this deep dive has shown us algocracy is this emergent reality. It's subtly shaping our lives. It's different from traditional governance. And while it promises great things like efficiency, objectivity, it seriously risks automating bias, creating opaque judgments, eroding democratic accountability.
That algocratic dilemma is clear. Pursuing technological optimization seems to run counter to democratic health, at least in some key ways.
So what is the long-term impact if we really do lose sight of how these decisions are made? What happens generations down the line when the messy business of self-governance just kind of withers away?
Right. To truly grasp the stakes, maybe we need to get a little speculative,
Mm-hmm.
draw on some early 20th century literature, maybe.
Okay, like EM Forster's The Machine Stops? Is that where you're going?
Exactly. Imagine that future.
Yeah.
Generations from now, fully embraced algorithmic optimization, a world of seamless, algorithmically curated comfort. A global system provides every need perfectly. No poverty, no war, just optimized living. But direct human interaction just atrophies. People live in isolated pods, only communicating through the machine. They lose the ability to even understand the world outside the system.
Or like Isaac Asimov's The Evitable Conflict, where these powerful machines handle all the global planning to prevent human conflict.
Yes, and when minor errors start appearing like a supply chain hiccup here, a resource shortage there, it turns out they're actually deliberate, carefully calibrated interventions by the machines. They're subtly guiding humanity away from self-destruction, acting entirely for humanity's own good, but completely without human comprehension or consent.
So in this far future of algocracy, decisions get made for our own good, supposedly. But voting, political debate, protest, all that stuff is just
Correct.
atrophied, disappeared. Generations forget what's even being decided for them because the system is so effective, so invisible. Life is safe, stable, predictable, and utterly devoid of self-government.
That's the ultimate danger, perhaps. Not a violent dystopia like in some movies, but a tranquil one. A society that has simply optimized away its own soul, its own agency.
Which means this friction in democracy. The messy debates, the compromises, the inefficiencies we complain about, it's not a bug to be engineered out.
No.
It's the system's most essential feature, isn't it? It's where values get debated, forged, where agency is actually exercised. It's where we live democracy.
Precisely. The challenge isn't stopping progress. It's about infusing AI design and governance with democratic values from the start, prioritizing transparency over opacity, contestation over convenience, and always human judgment over automated finality.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this as you start your week? It means paying attention. Paying attention to how decisions are being made around you, especially the ones you can't quite see. The ghost in the machine of algocracy. Maybe it's the ghost of our own forgotten agency. Our task is to make sure these incredibly powerful new tools remain our servants, not our silent, invisible, and perfectly rational governors. What stands out to weigh you about how AI is shaping our decision-making? And maybe more importantly, what kind of future do you want to build with it? Something to think about.